The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. This is Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am with my partner in crime here, Mr. Michael Apotria. And Michael, I'm in stunned here. We have real NBA basketball, my brother. Can you believe this?
We are here, Coach. I mean, I'm not home. I'm working out in Maryland right now, so pretty far from Connecticut. But I couldn't think of a better way to spend my night than watching some hoops. We got a little World Series action, and I'm doing a podcast with my guy over here, Coach. So, I'm loving life right now, man. It doesn't get any better than this.
It doesn't, man. All the build up to the season starting, and all the preseason stuff, and it's just like, wow, it's here. This is just awesome. It is really awesome. We've got like 50 people in our first coaches challenge, and we just launched it 48 hours ago. So I'm sure that sucker's going to fill up next week. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to this second game. Always record this in the evening before, as everybody knows that listens to our DFS podcast every day. And then, we get it out there late at night so that you can catch this pod in the morning. And trying to cram it in. So, the first game of the first slate tonight, big Lakers coming up here and just sitting on Davis, LeBron James, and JaVale McGee in our big. I feel like I got a shot, man.
I think, and let's be real. It's a late. You got three guys. You got in there. So
You're breaking up really bad, man. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You're in and out.
No, it's. I think it has something to do with this. I'm on the Wi-Fi hotel room right now, so I do apologize to everybody. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure you guys get this content, regardless of what my work schedule is and what state I'm in. But it as clear as it normally would be tonight. We're still going to try to do the best that we could and use what we have to work with. But I mean, I heard you, Coach. I know you said you're doing pretty well, and you got three guys left. You got LeBron, Davis, and JaVale. So,
Yes.
I mean, we were talking about it before on air. I'm kind of going against you a little bit on this because we're in the same contest. We're maybe a place or two behind, and I do have Davis, I have Kawhi, and I have Dwight Howard. So almost the polar opposite lineup as you do left. So we're gonna be battling down to the edge to see who finishes higher with this one.
Beautiful. This is going to be a good one. And we talked a little bit before the show. And again, if the audio is not as great tonight, please forgive us. We're like Mike said, we're pounding this in to make sure we get it to you. Mike's on the road, squeezing it in. So hopefully it's you're able to hear everything clear enough. And I'll also warn you, we're going to get a shout out from our mascot Chance the dog here when my son comes in. So he'll give so it doesn't scare anybody on the call here. He's going to give us I'm sure a rowdy little first night, opening night greeting from our mascot dog. So anyway, we were talking about we have this big challenge one-on-one against each other with different things we disagree on throughout the year for our chicken suit challenge at the NBA All-Star break. So I am willing to go head to head in fantasy draft points I'll take McGee against your Howard if you'd like that challenge.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say yes, solely because I'm never gonna turn down a challenge. And I did talk a little game before this on why I picked Dwight Howard, and it was solely because I know JaVale McGee is gonna be splitting those rebounds with Anthony Davis in the front court while he's playing. And you know what, Coach? Let's do it. What's the worst?
All right.
I'm 0-1 right now. I mean, what's 0-2? Or I could tie this up. So. I'll take Howard. Let's do it. Why not?
Let's do it. We're on. So we'll know when the listeners tune into this. They'll know, who's going to be in a good mood tomorrow and who's going to be grumpy
It feels
right off the
gross
bat.
already, Coach. It feels gross already knowing I just bet on Dwight Howard. Like I already
And you
felt
went
bad
against
enough
you
about
went
putting him-
against McGee too. Your
I know this can't
your
work out well.
kryptonite, dude.
This can't work out well for me. I just betting on Dwight Howard leaves a sour taste in your mouth as it is. Let alone knowing I'm going against McGee and we're gonna be doing a chicken soup bet on this. And there's not a lot going in my favor on this, but I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it.
At least if you lose, you don't have to get those frosted tips on your hair like Howard has.
Yeah, no, someone's got to talk to that guy. No,
well, before we jump in, because we have a monster 11-game slate, I'm so excited this week. We've been talking about this forever and ever. We got an NBA 11-game slate. But before we get rolling, I want to really thank our presenting sponsor, Fantasy Draft. They've been absolutely awesome. They're going to be with us 7 days a week for the entire year. So big shout out to Mike Grace and the whole team at Fantasy Draft. They're going to be sponsoring this Coaches Challenge contest once a week, and that's going to be our spot. For a couple, it's $2 to get in. You can enter up to 6 times if you like. So we'll build up a nice little pot in there, and it's as with everything at Fantasy Draft, it's rake free. So everything that goes in comes out in the winnings. And Fantasy Draft also is going to provide some nice little swag to the winner each week. So it's going to be a blast.
I want that swag, Coach. I want that swag. There's nothing better than winning like a free T-shirt. Like leave $1,000 on the board. Give me the free T-shirt. That's what I'm all about. Give me free stuff.
I'm telling you, I had a $500 head-to-head that I played today. I think I spent more time trying to figure out the $2 challenge contest than I did my big head-to-head, because I'm just so intent on doing well on that. But it's exciting. But make sure to go to fantasydraft.com and sign up if you haven't already. Use the promo code HoopBall, all one word, and you get a free week and up to $1,000 rake free for that first week. So get in there. Fantasy Draft is the coolest because you can build a lineup any way you want. Your hands aren't tied to positionality like they are on some of the other sites. So jump in there and get with us. So let's go, man. First game is a 7 Eastern game. That's the lock tomorrow for the 11-game slate. And it's the Chicago Bulls and the Charlotte Hornets.
All right, let's do this. I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't a game I'm too in love with. I'm expecting actually a decently high total. At the end of the day, these are two young teams that are going to be playing at a fast pace. But we do have 11 games on, so we do have to cut our player pool down in this kind of scenario. So for me, on like the Bulls side, I'm really only looking at one real spot on this, and it's not like a lock and load play or anything like that. It's a guy I'm definitely going to have some exposure to, and I hyped him up last year, and it's going to be Tomas Satoransky. We know he's starting at the point guard for the Bulls. He's going to be splitting some time with some of these other guys. It's not like he's going to be getting 36 minutes at this position. That's kind of why he's not really a lock and load play for me. I do like his salary. Given on DraftKings he's 5,300, on Fantasy Draft he's 10.5, but he's also on DraftKings small forward eligible, and that's really where I'm getting my appeal with him, because small forward's generally a position that kind of is a little lackluster on this given slate. We do have some options. I'll get to those. But for me on the Bulls side, I'm really looking at Satoransky. On the Charlotte side, Rozier is going to be definitely a popular play, but we're not really getting him at a discount. So I'm honestly thinking about just fading Rozier, and for my Charlotte exposure, if I'm getting any, it's going to be Miles Bridges, and on the Bulls side, I'm looking at Satoransky.
All right, man. For me, I'm going to do one of my strong plays right away, right in this first game. I like Zach LaVine. I've been talking him up a lot in preseason. I think this is his year to step up and just pour it on. Charlotte is not a strong team. They're not a good defensive team. I think there'll be enough pace here for LaVine to have 35 real points, and then just layer on, hopefully some other stats that he fills in. So Zach LaVine is going to be a strong play for me. I see a lot of rotation with a lot of other guys in this game, and so that's my only play on that side. LaVine will be guarded by Bacon and Monk a little bit, and whoever else they shift in there at the two. And I think he should be able to really take advantage of those matchups and have a big game. On the Charlotte side, I think with the three-headed monster of Chicago's point guards of Satoransky, Dunn, and Kobe White, I think they'll be fresh and wear down Terry Rozier a little bit. So I'm going to fade Rozier, who's I like to roll out there quite a bit, but I'm going to let him go early here and not push the envelope there. The one play that I'm looking at for the Charlotte Hornets is P.J. Washington. He's going to be low cost, good value play, should get some steady minutes, and I like the matchup with him against Markkanen or a couple of the other guys that'll rotate in to that four spot as well. So that's where I stand on that one. I probably two plays out of the very first game, and a couple of things to mention too as we get into these large slates. Mike and I will never mess around and tell you four guys from every team that we suggest. I mean, some of the touts out there, it's just such a waste of time. They take the three or four best players from every team and recommend them, and we're also not afraid to fade some of the big names. We will do that as well. But, you got to pick and choose when you have these 8 or 9 man teams you're building on these sites and you have 22 teams to pick from. You got to be very picky with your selections. And we're going to try to give you the real stuff that we're going to play and put all of our money on the line with and roll from there. So let's jump into game 2.
Oh, hold on, real quick, Coach. Before we go into further, I know you mentioned P.J. Washington, and I wanted to mention that I did see a tweet from a beat writer a few days ago mentioning his rotation minutes and what he's expected to kind of see. And from what I saw and read, they're basically looking at playing him around that 24, 25-minute mark. And to me, I just think that given it being the first slate and us having some underpriced guys, I just don't know if that's enough minutes for me to be really interested in it, especially given the fact that, the Bulls aren't going to be a bad team necessarily this year. And we've seen just given the preseason, yes, it's preseason, but the Hornets really struggled to stay in any sort of games during the preseason as well. So that's my only worry, and that's I did have interest in P.J. Washington going into the year, and he's still a guy I'm going to keep my eye on going forward, and I do think he's ownable in year-long leagues, but I kind of want to see more than that 24, 25-minute mark, knowing that there's going to be some other guys at that forward position that are going to be around that same price range.
And I get your point there. I just think that he's going to be such a value, and I do think Chicago's going to drill him. And I can't imagine Old Man Marv at the 4 getting mop-up minutes in the 4th when they're going to want to try to get PJ as much experience. So I'm hoping he gets around 30, and I think at value that'll pay off. So we will see, my man.
All right. Hey, listen, I'm not going to knock you. I know he's got the talent, and I know he's got the skill. For me, I know that they're going to want to get some Bridges at the 4 as well, though. So I think that's definitely going to cut into his time. So I'm not expecting necessarily Old Man Marv to cut into his minutes as much. But when they do shift, we're talking about Bridges over to the 4, and then they're playing somebody else at the 3. That's what's going to really cut into his minutes. So that's the thing I'm looking at as far as P.J. Washington. I don't think he's a bad play. I just think that, given the salary of a few other guys and, what we have available on an 11-game slate, that he's going to be tough for me to crack into my lineup. So I'm not knocking you for it, Coach. I do think it's a solid play, and I do like Washington. I just, hey, we got to be truthful here. I don't think he's going to make my lineups.
Yeah, and he won't be more than likely in my cash, but I will plug him in for a GPP guy that could, I think, be 3-4 times value. All right, let's run to the next one because we've got so many. We've got the Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers.
All right, so I think we already have some news. We know Blake Griffin's going to be out. We know that Reggie Jackson is looking like he's more or less doubtful. Maybe I'm speaking a little ahead of myself on this, but that's kind of the way I'm approaching this. And Markieff Morris is also questionable and looking like he could also be a little bit towards the doubtful side as well. So I think we just have to look at the front court with this situation with Detroit. It's going to be Andre Drummond. I think he's a little underpriced on DraftKings over there. I think he's only 8,400. That's cheaper than Drummond was last season. That's an absurd price. And then we also have to look at our boy Christian Wood, the point per minute producer himself. He's most likely going to get some run at power forward in this type of game. So I especially going against the Pacers, who do play two big guys in their front court. So Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner. So for me, it's just those two guys. I wouldn't necessarily play them together. I don't think that correlates very well, knowing that they can eat into each other's rebounding value. But I do like both. I think that we have three really good prime centers on this slate that are pretty high priced. So, if you're going to be the guy that, sits there and avoids Drummond, maybe get some Christian Wood exposure in your tournaments.
Absolutely. How about on the Indiana side?
Honestly, Coach, I'm not really loving anything on the Indiana side. I think this game's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be a blowout very fast, or it's going to be a low volume, low scoring, slow paced game where there's not a lot of value. If I was going to look anywhere, it'd probably be Brogdon, but I just think at 6,500 on DraftKings, I think that's a little bit over my taste. So I'm not really going to go there too much, knowing that we have some other options at shooting guard and point guard that we could go to. So I'm not going to knock the Brogdon play. I think he's more of a GPP kind of guy, but I'm really not too interested in anybody on Indiana.
Okay. I did read something from a beat writer yesterday about the Pacers. Something to keep a note of going forward is the coach basically stated that their biggest goal this season is to up the pace of play. They want to get more shots up and really push the pace compared to where they were last year, which was pretty low. So that's a good thing to look at for teams that you may have faded last year because the Pacers had a little bit slower style. Definitely something to keep an eye on. For me, Drummond is my center tomorrow, period. He's 100% lock, cash and GPP. With Griffin out and them really banged up, I don't believe Markieff is going to play. From what I read, Reggie might play, so that's a question mark. But I just think Drummond's going to get a bunch of minutes and just, I don't care that Miles Turner is a decent defender and etc. I think Drummond's just going to eat tomorrow, and he's easily my center play of the day. No one else on Detroit for me is going to make the lineup, especially on a large slate like this. On the Indiana side, I was tempted also with Brogdon, but my thought is Indiana is going to blow them out, and Detroit is going to try to slow the pace down because they're so shorthanded, and it'll just, I think, really cut into Indiana. And I think Holiday and McConnell give Brogdon a break, and these other guys they're a fairly deep team. So I'm going to pass on Indiana.
Yeah, no, I don't knock you. Like you said, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It's just nothing's very overwhelming. All the guys are priced right. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that game. Beautiful.
All right, we've got Cleveland at Orlando.
So this game is unsexy, needless to say. I think it's two options, and it's on one team. I'm only looking to target Orlando, and I want to say Vucevic, but we have other center options, which I prefer over him, so I'm probably not going to go that way, and then it's just really Aaron Gordon for me. If you wanted to take a stab at Evan Fournier, I wouldn't knock you for it, just because we know he can score in bunches. But he's very scoring reliant, and he was pretty injured during the preseason. So who's to say he's going to play big minutes? So let's be real. This Orlando team's not bad. This game could get out of hand very fast. So that's kind of my approach I'm taking with this game.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's just such a fade team this year. They're hard to play. They really are. So, I mean, it's going to have to be the right matchup in the right situation, and this one just doesn't look like a good fit for me. So, Cleveland is a pretty easy pass all the way across the board. I do like a small forward on the Orlando slot side, and that's Jonathan Isaac. You know, I've been touting him also in the preseason. I see him stepping forward. I love the matchup against, the Cleveland's against Jetty or, McKinney or some Knight if they play small. I just don't think anybody that plays the three for Cleveland is going to be able to really step up and stop him. And I think that he's got the best chance to sort of show out. I think that, he wants to show that he's a main option on this team. And they did run some plays for him in the preseason, which they hadn't done in the past. And I think that he's just a good play at a real reasonable price.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a big Isaac guy. Anybody that's listened to this year's show or last year's shows that I was on, I'm always touting him. Mentioned him in one of my hot take articles earlier this year. I'm a big fan of him. I just don't think this is the matchup where I want to try to take advantage of that. It's just a very underwhelming game overall. And like I said, generally small forward is very, very weak. But I think this opening slate, we definitely have a lot of small forward options that we can choose from. So I'm okay with just kind of avoiding this game all in general. If I were to pick one guy, I think I would lean Gordon, but I'm good with this game pretty much.
Outstanding. All right, we go to the 7:30 Eastern games, and the first one is Minnesota at Brooklyn.
So this is a spot that we would target centers in all day long last year. And I did mention a few high-priced centers. Karl Anthony Towns being 10-1 on DraftKings is a guy that I think that we need to look at just simply because he's going to be the focal point of this offense, as he has been. He's going to be playing big minutes. And I don't really care about DeAndre Jordan. This team's still probably going to, be pretty bad against opposing centers. So I do think he's on the board. He's probably the only one. I mean, I wouldn't mind a stab at Covington, but I don't think he's much more than a GPP play. Just because we've seen him before in the past, he could put up 17 rebounds in a game and then score 2 points, and that's still not going to get you to where you want to be with him. So I'm okay with just kind of looking at Towns a little bit, but when you're talking about price tags and Drummond being 1,700 less than him, it's kind of hard to be very, very enthused in him. So that's kind of where I'm at with this.
All right. You have any takes on the Brooklyn side?
Kyrie. It's a Kyrie home game, 8,900 DraftKings. We're looking at 16-4 on fantasy draft, so he's a guy that I'm going to be looking at a little bit. I'm expecting him to kind of want to show out at first game in Brooklyn. We know that he is from the New Jersey area, so he should have some friends and family in the stands just for that sole reason. I think Kyrie's on board.
All right. Kyrie right out of the chute, huh? Not bad. I mean, I get it, no doubt. For me on the Minnesota side, Cat's got to be certainly a consideration. He's going to be one of the higher-owned players going against, the team, obviously, that had the 30th ranked. How many teams are there? 30?
30.
30th ranked team in the NBA against centers last year. Yes, DeAndre Jordan's there, like you mentioned, but I still think Cat, is probably going to be one of the highest usage guys for the whole season. It's just that cost difference with Drummond. You hit the nail on the head, across the industry. To me, I see the two of them having similar type nights. And, fantasy draft, I will try to jam in both Towns and Drummond for sure and try to, use some of those value plays that we'll discuss this evening or, for the evening and try to get both of those guys in because I think they're going to both smash. I like Robert Covington a ton in this game. I think his price is fair. He's not a value play, but it's fair enough. And I love the matchup against, whether he's playing against Torian Prince or Karooks or Musa or whoever they put in there at the 4. I just think that he has a big game, and he can hit a bunch of threes. He's going to, not have any other blank stats. He always gets a bunch of steals, rebounds, and I just think he's a real logical play in a game here that I think is going to have a really good pace. So, I'll be, like I say, where I can put Cat in, I will. And Covington's going to get definitely some run for me on slates across the different sites. On the other side of the ball, with Brooklyn, I love Karis LeVert. He's one of my favorite young players in the league. I don't see anybody really at the 3 that's going to stop him. Jake Layman probably is going to get the start. They'll bring in Culver, who's a rookie. He should be able to school the life out of those guys. So, I really love Karis LeVert in this game. Again, a guy that you can get at a fair price, and he's going to get a lot of play for me.
I do like LeVert. I didn't mention him, but for the sole reason, I'm glad that you mentioned Jake Layman starting the 3. My thought process on this is just because Jake Layman's starting at the 3 on offense doesn't mean he's going to be guarding the 3 on defense. So I'm actually expecting Covington to get a lot of LeVert on defense. And for the same reasons that you like Covington is the same reasons I don't like LeVert. He's very good defensively. He can come up with a lot of steals, come up with a lot of blocks. He's a very pesky defender, and that could cause LeVert some problems. So for me, I'm not going to sit there and X LeVert out of my player pool, but I'm not going to play him in any cash games. I would expect Layman to be covering whoever's playing the 4 for Brooklyn, and then just Covington taking on LeVert for most of the game. I think that's the route that they're going to go. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. But for that sole reason, 11 games, I'm not going to go there. And we also have to see how this team meshes with Kyrie being in their offense now. So,
right.
I mentioned that it is a home game pretty much for Kyrie just because he does live in New Jersey. He grew up in New Jersey. That's a stone's throw away from Brooklyn. He's going to have friends and family. And, we could see it just kind of tonight with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. What happens when you play in home games? You kind of buy into that narrative. I think, what do you have, 8 shots in his first 4 minutes? He's from Canada. Gosh. He's from Canada. Yeah. They're playing in Toronto. I mentioned it a little bit, on Twitter, I think. So it's a thing that you kind of have to buy into, these hometown narratives. And, Kyrie's not a guy that's going to sit there and force an extra 7 shots necessarily because his family's in the stands. But it's something I do take some slight into account. It's not something that's going to be a lock necessarily, but that's kind of my method on why I'm not really getting too much LeVert ownership.
Yeah, and it's all going to come down to what that matchup is, because I just don't think that's the way they're going to match it up. I do think that I do think Layman will start on him, but I could be wrong. So that's something that maybe reading into tomorrow, seeing if we can check out some of the write-ups for both teams and see if we can figure out those matchups, because I think LeVert against Covington is a completely different situation. So we'll see how that rolls out. That'll be very very interesting, and I think that'll be a fun game to watch with definitely some pace involved there. All right. We go on to game 5, Memphis at Miami. An interesting game.
See, I'm not thinking it's that interesting, to be honest. I'm not really.
No?
I mean, for year-long fantasy,
you were a Grizzlies guy.
I am a Grizzlies guy, but not when they're playing the Heat. We're talking about an Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley team who generally never plays pretty up-tempo. They got pretty good defenders now, so it's kind of a spot that I'm not very interested in. If I was to look at anybody in Memphis, it would basically be the 2 young focal points of their offense, which would be Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant. But to be honest, I just think we have better options. I think there's going to be better slates to kind of take advantage of these guys' prices and target them. And this isn't a game I'm too overly excited. I love a lot of the guys as far as year-long fantasy, and it wouldn't shock me to see everybody have a good game. But again, Coach, I'm a GPP player. I'm looking for guys that are going to break the slate that you need to have into your lineups, and I just don't think that there's going to be anybody in this game that's going to be like, I must roster them kind of thing.
No, you know what? I agree with you. We're on point here. I just think for Memphis, that's a tall task to go into Miami for their very first game. I guess Joe Val is back. Is he going to play?
Yeah, Joe Val said he's expecting to play, and I'm glad you mentioned it.
He'll be limited. I'm sure he'll be limited, though.
Yeah, and he's not a guy that I didn't mention him, and I said I'm not interested. I did write him down, though. I always do my pen and paper kind of thing before, just because of his price tag. He's 6,600. It's probably still too cheap for him, even if he plays 27 minutes. He's a guy that can rack up a double-double very quickly. I'm expecting a high usage from him in this offense. So he's a guy that I'm going to have a lot of my lineups going forward. But again, we're talking about a lot of centers on this slate, so he might make the cut in one out of every 6 or 7 lineups. But for me, he's not going to be a focal point.
Yeah, I've got to wait and see on Joe Val for a while. I've got to think, they'll roll him out there for 20, 24 minutes because he did not suit up for a single preseason game, and I can't imagine they're going to push him off the bat, especially with a young team like this. So he's a complete cross-off for me. My feelings on Triple J. I am not a Triple J guy because I think he's got even a worse than Mitchell Robinson foul trouble issue that is just, watching the preseason, he just has no concept of positionality defensively. His reaching and his fouls are just ludicrous, and it seems to snowball when he starts to pick up a couple more. So I don't trust him at all. He will not be on my, I think he's a talented kid, but he's not going to be in any of my lineups until I could see a little bit more out of him. John Morant is very, very tempting, and I'll tell you why. Because his speed, even though Miami is really good defensively, it's just this is a really good matchup for him because Justice Winslow is going to start at the point. So the question is, who's going to be quick enough out there to guard him on the Miami starting 5? I see nobody. And then when they bring Dragic in, he's crafty vet, but he certainly doesn't have the speed to stay with Morant. So if you have the stones to play him, I think Morant could put a good game on the board. I really do. But with it such a big slate and so many good point guards, he might not quite make the cut for me. But I see every reason why he would be a good play, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I wanted to get to, and I didn't want to tout him too much, but at the same time, I didn't cross him out of my player pool. Generally, when I start on the night before, I try to eliminate a lot of guys I'm not interested in, and he's not a guy that made that cut of elimination for me just because of his simple upside. Like you said, I did think about that with the Winslow guarding him. He's going to have a major speed advantage. He's going to kind of be able to get a shot on him anytime he wants. But it's a rookie. We always have to take that account. There is an adjustment period of actual game speed. Yes, he played well in the preseason, but we're talking about starting lineups for 30-plus minutes now. We're talking about Spoelstra, who is he's always been good, a defensive keen coach. So, for me, I just don't see myself getting there. I think tonight's going to be a night where I spend up a little bit more on point guard, and that's just kind of the route I'm going to be taking.
Excellent. On the Miami side, I have 2 guys that are right on the cusp of making my lineup. Certainly going to put both of them in a GPP. Not sure on the cash side, but I think Bam Adebayo is a great play. I mean, he looked phenomenal in the preseason. He's going against Joe Val in a limited sense. Triple J will foul him 3 times in one possession. So I just think Bam's going to be tough to stop inside, and he's really a force. He's definitely my pick for most improved player this year, and I could see putting him in there. Again, we're starting to stack centers again, and I already said Drummond's my main play, and there's some other guys I like as well. So, this Bam's probably going to be a fantasy draft guy for me because of the positionality, being able to play multiple centers. But he's certainly going to make some GPPs for me on the other side in some of the other sites. And then, I know I'm a broken record, but Tyler Hero, I pretty much play somewhere in my lineups all the time. And, with Dion Waiters being suspended for actions against the team that were detrimental, so he's out. And, I can't imagine they're going to count, on playing Butler at the 2 a ton or the rookie Kendrick Nunn. So I love that Hero's going to get, to me, what I think could be a 25 to 30-minute run. And I think he's certainly a consideration for me that I'm going to look at throughout the day tomorrow.
I don't knock you for it. I'm a big Hero guy. I just don't think this is the right spot. I want to see kind of what his regular season rotation minutes look like first. Yeah, he was getting a ton of run in preseason, but it's preseason. We see rookies get a ton of run in preseason all the time. So I'm just not too confident. I mean, the Waiters suspension definitely does bode well for him. I just don't think that's a spot that I'm going to be dabbling in too much on tonight or tomorrow night. Maybe later on in the future.
If he breaks the slate for me tomorrow, I'm going to come on and I'm going to sing I'm choking because I can't sing it. Did you ever know you're my hero?
I can be your hero, baby.
Is that Celine Dion? So I will break out the tunes if he breaks the slate for me, for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. You got it. That's a picture-perfect moment.
And that's with hero with 2 R's, not 1, baby.
Yeah, nah, man. I don't knock him. I love his game. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be a very talented guy. I think he has a very bright future. I do think that playing against Memphis, they're going to see an up-tempo pace, so that does help him. Yeah, and if definitely. We do see garbage time for some reason, it's not going to really impact him as well. So for all those reasons, I guess I can kind of, side with you. I just don't think I'm going to go there.
You'll think about it and slide them in somewhere. I know it, man. We got to talk each other into winners here. That's the main thing. Or talk each other out of losers, one other way or the other. All right, the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers. What a great first night game for both of those teams.
Yeah, dude, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be one that I'm definitely probably going to get a good amount of action in watching. I think we have to just talk about the obvious options. For me, I'm looking at the Boston side. I'm looking at Kemba Walker at 8,100 on DraftKings, 14.8. He's a guy that we're talking about when he was playing in Charlotte, getting all that usage. Was putting up 40, 50-point nights regularly on across the industry. So I think he's definitely an option. We do have some other point guard options. We've already mentioned a few. So kind of, getting your exposure in the right things, maybe game stacking them with a guy like Joel Embiid might be a smart way to go if you're going to play him. And then for the other option I'm really looking at would be like Jaylen Brown at 5K on DraftKings. And I just think that he's, he just signed that big contract. He's a guy that's definitely going to see an increased usage. Yes, Tatum's going to see usage. Yes, Hayward's going to see usage. But this is a guy that they locked in. He's a big part of this offense going forward. I think he's going to take his time, take his shots wherever he needs to. And you know what? If we're gonna pick one guy that kind of has that upside, I think it's going to be him at that nice little mid-salary, low-owned kind of price tag.
That makes sense. Can you believe the contract Jaylen Brown got?
It's absurd.
It stuck out like a sore thumb. I couldn't believe what they paid him. I think they overpaid him by like 30, 40 million. I really do.
Yeah, well, you know what? He had the Celtics by the balls at that point. You know what I mean? They already mentioned several times over the past year or 2 years that he was untouchable in trade and all this other stuff. So at that point, he pretty much could have named his price, and they had to pay it because they would look foolish if they didn't sign him to a deal and then they didn't involve him in like an Anthony Davis trade like they had the option to.
Yeah, I guess. I was shocked. Good for him, though, man. No doubt. Did you mention anybody on the Philly side?
So Philly, yeah, I'm looking at Embiid and Simmons. Those are the only real two options I have any interest in. I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup for Embiid. I mentioned 3 high-priced centers I'm in, and this is the third one. I like Towns, I like Embiid, I like Drummond. Just the fact that he's going to be able to have his way with guys like Canner, Robert Williams, and Daniel Tice. There's not please play Canner 20 minutes and Joel Embiid will have 40 points. It's that simple.
Oh my God, I know.
The longer Canner's on this guy, the more obnoxious his game's going to get. I just don't see an avenue where he just doesn't hit value. It's hard. Yes, Drummond is 1,400 less than him on DraftKings, and that's going to be the difference maker when I'm building my lineups is that price difference. Otherwise, if they were close to the same price, it would probably be Embiid all day for me.
Yeah, and Embiid's got to be one of the higher owned guys on the slate. I mean, he has to be because, just that matchup alone. I mean, Daniel Tice is going to be that's a big, task for him. Canner's the worst defensive center in the league, and Williams isn't even 100% healthy. He's a little dinged up. So, man, you're right. Embiid's going to be hard to not put in there. And, if I do have a second or third lineup where I don't have a Drummond in there, I probably even like Embiid a little bit more than Towns just because of the matchup. So I'm going to be trying to juggle some lineups. It's such a shock to the system here trying to look at 22 teams and all these guys. We've been away from it so long, and then just having these little 3-4 game preseason slates. I mean, it's like, wow, how do you make your cuts here? It's going to be tough, but I agree with you, man. I mean, this is such a smash spot for Embiid. It's not even funny, and I think he'll just absolutely crush it. So I'm going to try to find a way, zigzag in a few lineups. I can see entering a few things, which I usually don't. I usually try to keep my lineups down, but it's going to be so hard tomorrow. I'm going to want to play a couple of these extra guys, but that's my only play from the Philly side. I think it's pretty cool about, with Horford going against Boston, that narrative is going to be interesting. I think it may work sort of negative against Horford because I think the Boston guys are going to be a little more pissy about, sort of sticking it to him because he left them because he wanted to play for a contender, like a huge slap in the face to the Celtics. So, I don't think that's going to bode great for Horford. And, Simmons is always an option, no doubt about it. It's just, again, you got just a litany of point guards here.
He has a poor history against the Celtics as well. So.
Yeah, he does. They usually defend him pretty well, and it's one of the. I think that's the team he has the worst stats against. But no, that's a good point too. And then from the Boston side, I just see so much distribution of usage. I don't think Kemba's going to be the dominant guy that he was in Charlotte, at least not initially, because the ball has to be shared. Tatum, any given night, really Tatum or Hayward or Brown, those guys could lead the team in scoring. And certainly Kemba is going to be right there. Marcus Smart plays a big role. So it just, Boston is just a real tough DFS play for me, especially on a big slate like this.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about, Kemba I'm looking at is I'm not expecting him to have the same usage as Kyrie did when he was there, but I'm expecting him to absorb just about most of it. So I'm not really too worried, especially with Horford leaving. A lot of the offense did run through Horford at the post. A lot of it, he'd step up to the three-point line, he would, take a couple dribbles, then hand it off, whatever it may be. He would have the ball in his hands a lot, and he was almost like a point center for them at some point. So that's kind of the reason why. And now we're talking about a Kemba Walker. You're mentioning it, how good he was over in Charlotte, and that's with about 98% of the defensive attention being on him. I think these other options are going to help open up his game a little bit more. That's kind of why I'm still keeping him in my player pool. I think he's a fair price. 8,100 and 14.8 on fantasy draft I think is more than fair. So I'm not going to cross him out. I'm not going to lock and load him. But he's definitely in play for me, without a doubt.
I don't blame you. I mean, I respect Kemba tremendously. It's just such a recipe for fade for me when a guy goes from a team where he was, 85% of the plays were called for him, and now he's going to be one of 4 guys that could score each time down. That whole usage thing is massive there. Yes, he'll keep the minutes, and that'll be there. And I think, on a given night with the right matchup, he can be really good. But I think Kemba's numbers are going to go down a little bit, simply sort of the opposite of the way you're thinking. Yes, he was the focal point defensively for teams facing him, but also that's because he shot the ball, or the play was for him almost every time. So I think that's going to affect his number, and I think you may see his price go down a little bit here in the first couple of weeks. And, once that happens, then I think I'll be more interested.
You think it's going to go much? I don't know if it's going to get much lower than 8,100 on like DraftKings, Coach. He's not a 7K type of guy.
Well, he's got I think first of all, I think the reason he's 8,100 is for the reason I'm saying exactly. I think they're smart to say that.
There he is.
Okay, there he is. We got our mascot. We knew it was coming, but he was pretty quiet tonight. He was pretty good. Chance is fired up for the start of NBA season. It's interesting. It's got to play out, but I think that he's going to be a guy that you're going to see sitting at that 76, 77, 78 number here pretty quick. I really do, because there's so many good point guards, and I think, with what he's going to put out, I think that's sort of the range that he'll be in, where I expect him to land. But we'll see. I certainly could be wrong. I mean, he's a very gifted player. There's no question about it.
No, hey, listen, if you're going to fade him, I'm interested in see who you're going to be playing at point guard then, because, you're fading Kyrie. Yeah, you're not interested in Kemba.
No.
Those were two of the guys I know I'm going to have some interest in at point guard. There's a few other guys I've, jotted down. But I don't know if they have the same kind of upside. And, we're going to get to one of the other guys I wrote down a little bit later, and I know you're going to have some interest in them just because they're facing your team. And I know how much you love that. We'll just get to it, I guess, real quick. The Phoenix Suns.
There's some guys. There's some point guards coming, and you are exactly right.
I know.
My favorite point guard not nailed already, and we're 4 games away from
Listen,
that.
I already know, Coach. I know you.
Good
We've been doing
Lord.
these. I have them written down too. Just looking at that price difference between him and Kemba, it's not very much.
Does that mean that the fox has snuck into the chicken coop here? Is that what we're talking about?
I think we are. What the fox says, I guess.
Absolutely.
I do have some interest in him. We'll get to that when we get to it. I just knew that if you're not interested in these two guys, that's got to be the guy you're interested in, because he's another guy I've written down. And after that, my point guard list gets pretty short.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm trying to stay real because, it's just, again, 22 teams, and it's like a culture shock getting back in to, building a lineup with 8 or 9 guys in it, depending on which site you're on. And, it's like, okay, you got to be super selective, but I'm with you, man. All right, we're 6 games through, 5 to go. So just at the halfway, somewhat, a little bit over halfway point here. Again, we want to thank our sponsor, Fantasy Draft. Get to fantasydraft.com, sign up with the promo code HoopBall, get that first week free action up to 1,000 entry fees. Join the Coaches Challenge contest. I'm not cheating, by the way. I don't want to know where I'm standing, so don't look at those results at all yet. I want to wait and turn it on after the show, because I'm going to take that sucker down, baby.
I haven't been looking at the results, Coach, but I will tell you, we were talking before the show. Fred VanVleet rolled his ankle, left the game. He did return, and this game went to overtime. So just a little.
Oh my God!
Just a little tidbit to kind of get your mouth watering while we're doing
and
this.
And VanVleet's back on, huh?
The game's over now, but he did play 44 minutes.
Holy crap. Yeah, he was my lock and load too. That's awesome, dude.
Oh, yeah, you had to
But, all right, so Fantasy Draft, get there, utilize them, get on there. They're fantastic. They're the only rake-free site out there. It's amazing how much you save. I did had some discussions with some of the Fantasy Draft guys, and then crunched some of the numbers, and it's such a huge impact. Someone like me that plays pretty heavy, I end up with what I pay for, monthly for my membership. It ends up being about 4 to 6% overall rate, which is peanuts. A lot of these sites are 12, 14, 16% rake, depending on some of the contests. So when you're talking about, half or well less than half, double the savings, if you will, half the cost, whichever way you want to look at it. You got to consider it. I mean, it makes a massive difference for your DFS dollar. So definitely, check that out. Also, we're 7 days a week. Catch us every day. I'm on 6 of the days. We have Michael, obviously, plugging 5 of them. Andrew Hansen, who's a stud. He's already sharking it up in the first preseason couple of shows, and he'll be on a couple of times a week. And you can catch that podcast everywhere podcasts are found. We are on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. And do us a favor, take a second, rate, review, subscribe, hit the 5 stars, give us a quick positive review, some likes, some thumbs up on YouTube, and that really helps us get our sponsors excited and happy, and everybody that's working to bring this free content to you on a daily basis. It allows this train to keep on rolling. So please do that when you have a chance, and we will keep bringing you this behind the wall kind of top-notch DFS analysis that you really can't find anywhere else. So we're there, man. We're doing it. And with that, we get to go to the 8:30 Eastern games, the Washington Wizards and Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a game that is I'm actually pretty interested in. I don't know about you, Coach. I have a few options I'm definitely taking a look at. We'll start with the Washington side, and I mentioned a shooting guard having a few options. I think Bradley Beal is definitely going to be an option that we're looking at the entire season long. I'm expecting a massive season from him. I think this is a good defensive matchup for him. I'm expecting a pretty decent pace, so I think Beal is definitely going to be in play. There's another shooting guard we will get to. That's a very, very similar price that I do have interest in as well, which I almost think is going to be a toss-up between them both. But other than that, I'm really just kind of looking at Beal, and I think that Thomas Bryant at 6,600 is definitely in play. If you wanted to look at Rui Hachimura, 4,900 on DraftKings, I think he's an option. But I just wouldn't pair him in the front court with Bryant. I just think they don't correlate well. I think they eat into each other's value. So for me, I think he's more or less like a GPP play if you wanted to take a shot on him. But I'm really looking at Beal and Thomas Bryant on the Wizards side. And if we're looking at the Mavericks side, we know Dwight Powell is already out. So I think that I mentioned there being a couple of cheap forwards. And I think Maxi Kleber, 4,200, with Powell out, is going to be a guy I'm going to have some interest in, especially in this matchup. He's not a guy that I'm going to lock and load. But at 4,200, we don't need much from him. If he goes out there and plays 30 minutes, he can easily hit value. I mean, take a side of Luka and Porzingis. Those guys are always going to be in play. We saw how great they were during the preseason. I think Luka, it might be a little bit overpriced for my taste at this point. So I don't think I'm going to go to Luka in this kind of game, this kind of matchup. I mentioned wanting to take the wait and see approach with Porzingis, exactly how they kind of juggle his minutes. Do they limit his minutes on like a night-to-night basis, or do they rest him in back-to-backs? I mean, we really don't know yet. Yeah. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking.
All right, man. For me on the Washington side, I love Bradley Beal in this game. I think Dallas is pushing the pace a little bit more. I think you'll see them, they finished 15th in pace, sort of in the middle of the pack, or actually right dead in the middle of the pack last year. I think they'll move up a few notches. They're really trying to make that one of the things that they want to do is increase possessions now that they have Luka and KP in there. So I like Beal. I think he's just he falls in this category similar to what Kemba did with Charlotte last year. He's such a massive usage guy. I mean, there's really no one else on this team that is going to be anywhere close to being the centerpiece offensively. And, whenever it's a team that I think there's a decent matchup, where he should be able to play well. There's going to be a rotation of Dallas guys that play him, but I think he's still just too darn tough. So Beal's going to be in a lot of my builds. And Thomas Bryant is such a bargain. If you don't go with one of the high cost centers and you end up needing to get a value center in there, you can't go wrong with Bryant, especially, with Dallas not having Powell there and having to, switch in and out between Boban and really Kleba and maybe even bumping Porzingis down there a little. But Bryant is definitely got to be a consideration if you need a cheaper center for sure. On the Dallas side, I'm going to plug and play Kristaps. I've been tooting his horn like crazy. I mean, the dude's healthy. I'm telling you, he's healthy. He's strong. He does not look like the skinny, frail Kristaps that played with as good as he was that played in New York. He's just much more stable. Just the way he runs the floor and plants, he just looks much more durable. And he says, I saw an interview with him where he said his knee is 100% healthy. He doesn't feel any different than the other knee. And, I just think that he is 30-minute night player, and I don't see anybody that is going to be able to stop him on the other side of the ball for Washington. I mean, what a nightmare matchup for them, for Hashimura or Bertans or Bryant. I don't know how they're going to wiggle-waggle around who's going to guard him, but I just think he's going to crush him.
I don't disagree with you. For me, it's just I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. We're not really getting him at a discounted salary or anything like that.
Dude, he's healthy. You got to stop worrying about this.
I'm not worried.
He is good to go.
I'm not worried about how healthy it is. I do think he's healthy. I agree with you. I do think he's a fantastic player. The Mavericks aren't a team that generally runs their starters very long for as far as minutes as it is. I mean, Doncic is the only guy that I would say over the past
see that change.
I'm sorry?
I saw, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to say, through the preseason, I saw a little bit shift in strategy from Carlisle. I think he wants to run these young. I mean, because Luka and Porzingis are babies. It's not like, he protected guys' minutes when he had the Dirks and all these guys that were old, but he doesn't. And I think that you're going to see a little shift in the Carlisle that we've seen over the last several years, because he doesn't have that veteran team that it seems like the Mavericks always have. It's not DeAndre Jordan. It's not, these guys that are towards the end of their careers. You've got guys in their early 20s, and I think you're going to see a lot of run from Luka and Kristaps this year.
Hey, listen, I hope so. I have a fair amount of shares in Kristaps in season-long leagues, so I wouldn't mind that. I just don't know if that's where I want to bet. And, I just think that it's going to be a wait. Hey, listen, if he rolls out there and scores 34 minutes, I'll take one on the chin. That's okay. And then now I know going forward that I can fully play him. I'm just not ready. I told you I like to play big bucks on these big opening slates, and I'm just not ready to invest my big bucks until I see it. I'm not doubting the talent. I'm not doubting the health. I'll never doubt those things. If you want to play Kristaps, not going to knock you. It's just not a spot that I think I'm going to end up in. Especially, I wanted to touch on, again, we brought up Thomas Bryant. He's also power forward eligible on DraftKings, and that's kind of where I'm getting a lot of my love for him.
Sure. And that's a great play, by the way.
Oh, yeah. 6,600 in your power forward slot would be fantastic. You could still slot into a couple centers if you wanted to. So that's kind of my approach. I just know that I have a few power forwards that I am interested in. And I did mention I wanted to spend up at center and point guard, so I can't spend up everywhere. So at some point, something's got to give, and I think that's kind of one of the spots I'm going to look to save a little bit in.
Well, I'll throw down the gauntlet, and I'll let you know that any other power forward on this slate, the other 21 teams, I will take as a second challenge versus Porzingis fantasy points on fantasy draft. So you've got a little time. We still have 4 games to go.
Listen, are we talking fantasy points or point per dollar? There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
Fantasy draft
Put your money where your mouth is, Coach. Do point per dollar, and we're talking. Because I'll take Thomas Bryant over in point per dollar.
Let's go. You're on.
All right, I'll do that. Point per dollar, I'll take somebody else. So listen. If you say Porzingis outscores Thomas Bryant or another power forward on this slate by a little bit, yeah, I don't disagree with that. But we need to save some money in some spots, and if I can get somebody that's going to be a significantly amount cheaper and put up a very close sort of number, that's kind of where I see gaining my value.
That's an easy way. I mean, it's easy to do the math to figure out what they paid off per value, based on their performance of fantasy points to dollars played. So again, Porzingis would have to beat him fairly soundly to beat that value number. You know what I'm saying? And so that bet I would take.
It's on. It's on. Oh yeah. I'll take that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm eating my words. Maybe I'll be eating my words tomorrow night. But that's hey, listen, you gotta stick with your guns on this and take a stance. Oh no, I'm not saying you do. And just like I'm saying, I don't dislike Porzingis. I'm not hating on either one of them. I think they're both great plays. Don't get me wrong. If you wanted to play both of them in the same lineup, I wouldn't knock it either.
Just think, when tomorrow's over, you could be in the chicken suit lead 2-1.
We're talking though a $1,600 difference on those two on DraftKings. I mean, we're talking Porzingis is the highest priced power forward on the slate. So, I just don't see how you're going to be able to load up Porzingis and then get some shares if you wanted like either Towns or Embiid, or if you wanted to spend up at point guard a little bit. You got to get your value from somewhere, and I'm kind of curious on where you're getting it from.
I've got some big value plays on this chart. I've already listed a couple of them, and I got a couple more in the holster here. It'll be a little more stars and scrubs for me, but I still can get it done. And Porzingis will, and I'm going to pronounce this correctly because it's an A, not an A here. So it's smash. Porzingis is going to smash the slate. That's how big he's going to. That's right. My new word for my play of the night, smashing it. All right, dude. Knicks and Spurs. That's pretty scary.
Pass. See you later. We're good to go. Nothing to do with this. If you want to look at RJ Barrett, go for it. 5,900 is an okay price tag on him. They're mentioning that he actually might even start at point guard. That might be the difference maker for him. Mitchell Robinson's questionable. Bobby Portis could come in as a value play if he does end up starting center, but we're still talking about they're playing against the Spurs, so how much is this
in San Antonio?
Exactly.
Too.
What are these guys' ceilings really looking like against the Spurs? So I'm really okay with just not really going anywhere in this game.
I don't blame you, man. I'm a pass for the Knicks. Playing in San Antonio, not knowing what the heck's going on with their rotation. As much as I like Fizdale, I'm not sure his strategy right now.
I can't believe you like this guy, man. We talked about it a little earlier.
He's a good coach, but
he's
really,
so shaky. Like this whole.
I don't know what he's got to have a reason. It's either he's got to be like pissed at like Dennis Smith or something.
He's pissed at everyone.
Doghouse.
He's talking about 4 different starting point guards at this point. He even mentioned Alonzo Trier now. I mean, I'm a big Trier fan, and like, come on, man. Let's just you got to figure out some sort of rotation. You got to give some sort of clarity. It sounds like every single guard on this team's playing 20 minutes, according to him. So
I don't know what they're doing. I did read that Trier's going to start at the 2, though. I did read that. So I don't know. I mean, Fizz is having a breakdown here. I don't know what's going on, but I'm steering 100% clear with you on that one. From the San Antonio side, I only like one guy, and it's DeJounte Murray. I think he's priced right. I like him. He's a good value guy. It's 100% his team. First game back in front of the home crowd. Another guy that doesn't have minutes restriction. So he'll be making some of my lineups. But that's the only Spur I like because, I'm concerned of blowout here.
Yeah. Murray's going to be a guy that we're going to definitely have some owner. He's a guy that can rack up rebounds. He can rack up steals and blocks at the guard position. That's very valuable, especially if you're playing on FanDuel where they give you a little extra points for those defensive stats.
And whoever he's playing at point, if it's Smith or Peyton or Barrett or who the hell knows, I mean, he should be scripping guys and racking it because he's a potential all defensive player in the NBA, in my opinion. I think
Yeah,
he will be in the
absolutely.
future.
And
So
let's be real. Every
his
one of these
upside.
guards. I'm sorry to cut you off, Coach. Every one of these guards is like a turnover machine on the Knicks side of the ball. That just bodes very well for him.
I hate to see you get this upset about the Knicks, man. It's okay.
I
It's
can't
okay.
stand Fizdale. Listen, there's one thing that grinds my gears, and I actually like the guy. When he was over there in Memphis, I thought he would. But once he came over to the Knicks, and the way he ran these rotations, the way he speaks, and is just so cagey with the way
Yeah.
that I can't take it, and I don't. I want nothing to do with him. I don't think he knows what he's doing at this point. The way he talks about his own team, I genuinely don't.
I can't say that I'm not disappointed for a guy that I like, but I don't know what's going on there. I keep thinking there's a method to his madness, but I'm starting to really wonder, man. You may be right.
I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not, but
All
it
right,
looks like
dude,
that.
we got three left: Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz.
All right, so this is I mentioned a few guys on Oklahoma that I'm going to be very favorable going forward in this year, but this is not the matchup for me. I like Steven Adams a lot this year, not against Rudy Gobert. I like Chris Paul a lot this year, not going against Mike Conley really. I just don't think that this is a spot where I really want to target. Shai Gilgeous is a fair price, for what he is. I don't think he's overpriced. I don't really think he's underpriced. I don't think there's a much juice left in the orange in this kind of matchup though, where I'm going to really want to target him. So, I'm really not too thrilled about any. I think Gallinari will be low owned, and I think that he does have the upside in the scoring to get you there. I just don't think that this is a spot on the Oklahoma City side I'm really too enticed to play. And I think with Utah, I'm going to cross Gobert out because I mentioned so many other centers. I think that as far as the wings, Donovan Mitchell's a fair price tag. I think he's actually a little underpriced across the industry. But we mentioned Beal, and we're going to be talking about that Suns game in a little while. So I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get there as far as just with the other guys on the board.
I do not blame you. Games at Utah against teams where, I think that they're going to be favored against, just they control pace so well, and their, defensive interior and now on the ball with Conley there, they're going to be tough, man. I think they'll probably finish second to the Clippers in defensive proficiency this season. I mean, they have a chance to really lock teams down. So, I was tempted by Shea a little bit, but I really am just going to look at this game, and this will be one game that I completely pass.
Yeah, we can't have love for all these games at the end of the day. There's 11 of them on. You can't.
You got to pass it.
You got to take a hard stance on some guys, and that's why I always say, maybe it bites me. Maybe I take one off the chin in it. But that's part of the DFS world, man. You got to be able to take one off the chin once in a while. You're gonna have your bad beats. You're gonna have those guys that you regret not playing here and there. But you know what? If you do your research and you trust what you're doing, you trust your process and how you build your lineups, and you've had continuous success doing it this way, you just got to be ready to take one once in a while. And this is a spot where, hey, if I get beat, I get beat. Whatever. I'm cool with it because
take a stand. That's right.
No, I mean, at the end of the night, I think 4 out of 5 times we'll be right in this kind of scenario.
I agree. All right, I actually got out of my seat and I'm standing up because I'm so excited. I've been waiting for 10 games to get to this game. There's two 10 o'clock Eastern games, and the first one is my favorite game of the night: Sacramento and the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, and this is a game that we were kind of hyping up, and I think everybody's in play. Everybody is in play in this game. As far as the Suns, I'm looking at Booker, I'm looking at Ayton, I'm looking at Oubre. Those are the 3 guys on that side. I definitely have a lot of interest in. We're talking about the Suns team that was the worst statistical team against guarding opposing shooting guards. Devin Booker is a walking bucket. So I'm perfectly okay with playing him. He's only $100 cheaper than Bradley Beal, and that's kind of where I get that toss-up. Yes, Beal's going to have a much higher usage and a much higher floor, but Booker's a slate breaker. We've seen it before in the past, and I think this is the type of matchup where he could easily break a slate, so I'm going to have interest in him. And, it's going to be hard for me to get to Ayton, given the other centers that we have on the board, but I think this is a great matchup for him. On the the other side of the ball in Sacramento, I'm looking at your boy, like the Fox says. He's the other guy, 7,700. He's 400 cheaper than Kemba. So if you wanted, the only logical sense, if you're not going to go up to your Kemba or your Kyrie or one of those other high priced guards, it's going to be to De'Aaron Fox at 7,700. Marvin Bagley, I definitely have some interest in at 72. He's going to be a focal point of this offense. He should get time at the 4 and the 5. And then Buddy Hield at 7K. Those three guys, I think 3 guys on each side of the ball are the 3 guys I'm going to keep in my player pool. I'm going to eliminate the rest of them just by process of elimination. I don't think you need to go to your Harrison Barnes kind of players. I just don't think the upside's going to be there for those types of guys. So that's kind of where I'm at with this game, Coach. I'm getting straight to the point with it, and those are the guys I have interest in, and those are the only guys I will have interest in.
Beautiful, man. Well, I've got 5 guys in this game that are going to make my lineups in GPPs and cash games. And you sort of hit the nail on the head, and you saw all this coming. There's value here, man. There really is. I think De'Aaron Fox is going to be my number 1 point guard for the night. I think Buddy Hield is a terrific play. And I think Marvin Bagley at a power forward spot at that price is a terrific play. So those 3 are going to be in the game for me. And the 2 on the Phoenix side, I think Devin Booker, again, he can break any slate. I mean, you cannot beat him, when he's hot and going against a team where, Buddy Hield likes to trade threes. I could see those guys, both hitting like 8 or 9 threes a piece. So I love both those guys. And then I like Oubre as well. I think he's another cheap option, really, for a guy that is going to get solid minutes. He gets after it. He's a underrated player. And, those 5 guys are my key guys. If it was a smaller slate, I think Ayton would be in play, but he's like my 5th or 6th rated center. But 5 guys is a lot of guys. So I'll definitely have the late night hammer going with probably a third of my lineup in some of these cash games coming out of this game. So I'll be sweating it when the show's going on tomorrow. I'll be peeking at this Phoenix game in Sacramento for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Dario Saric, but he's a very fair price tag. We just don't know exactly how many minutes he's going to get. At this point, I'm not expecting 34 minutes like a lot of the other starters when they want to run their small ball lineup. Like when Bagley goes to the 5, he probably won't be on the court too much. So when that kind of happens, I think that that's going to really hurt him. But at this price tag, we kind of seen his upside in the past. We know what he could do. I definitely think this is a good matchup for him. I'm not going to cross him out of my player pool, but it's going to be very hard pressed to get that much exposure in a game. This is a great game, but we just, like you said, we just mentioned 5 or 6 other guys that we have a lot of interest in as well. But I just wanted to mention him in case anybody, kind of stumbled across him.
Let me give you a heads up him because you may want to scratch him. He is probable to play in this game, but he does have an arm injury, a tricep or bicep or something that's strained. He missed the last preseason game completely, and then he was limited in practice a little bit. So I really don't think you're going to get a big run out of him. He'll probably 20-minute kind of guy just until his arm's 100%. So just something to throw in there.
No, it's a good point, Coach. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah. I don't really take too much into account when a guy sits out of a preseason game, especially when it's one towards the back end of the preseason. Just because it's why risk it? At the end of the day, they know this guy's going to be a part of their offense. Most likely, their starting power forward, went out and made a move for him. So I don't think it's something I'm taking too much account into. But again, he's not a guy I was looking to plug into my lineups immediately anyway. It's just a guy I wanted to mention. I think he's a GPP option. He's definitely not a cash game option. But it's a great matchup. It's going to be a high-tempo game. There's going to be a lot of rebounds and a lot of defensive stats that kind of go around in this game.
I hope so. I'd love to see a real tight, high-scoring game. That'd be fantastic, man. All right, we're at number 11, dude. The first monster slate of the season, and we're gonna finish up in style with Denver and Portland.
So I mean, this is a game this is a potential playoff matchup that we're going to see, 82 games from now. I definitely
Yeah,
think there's going to be some guys in play. I mean, when you're talking about all these other teams and all these other matchups, these are two very good defensive teams. I think the Portland adding Hassan Whiteside is definitely going to boost them in the post. Yeah, it's Jokic, I guess. 9,600, he's always in play. We mentioned other centers, so I'm not going to go that way. I'm okay. I'm probably going to fade a lot of these guards for Denver for most of the season, just knowing that how deep they are and how they could just easily, Murray's having a bad shooting game, whatever it may be, go to Morris. They have options. So for me,
right.
I mean, I'm really not looking at too much, from Denver. It helps that they're not playing in Denver. That's I guess a little boost, but for me, I'm not really looking at too much on the Denver side of the ball. And if you're going to really look at anybody on the Portland side of the ball, we kind of know who we're looking at this point. You're looking at Whiteside, you're looking at Lillard, and you're looking at McCollum. And I think that's really it. I think Lillard's fair priced at 9,100. I think I'd rather play Fox at 77 in a better matchup. I think I'd rather play Kyrie at 89 in a better matchup, and I think I'd rather play Kemba at 81 in a better matchup. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as both of these teams. I don't think any of them are necessarily bad plays. I just think that we have a few other better options that we could choose from.
All right, man. Not bad. Not bad. Good take. For me on the Denver side, I have some interest in Jamal Murray. I think that his price is reasonable enough. I think that he's a big minutes guy, and to me, he's the guy that's locked in as much as anybody as far as their rotation goes. So he's going to be a consideration for me. Other than that, Denver, as I've mentioned in the preseason, once the regular season rolls around, their depth is so strong. It makes it hard to play some of these guys. Now, I did read today that Michael Porter Jr. is not in their rotation, so that's one guy that's sort of going to be sitting initially. But they still, with that whole conglomeration of Harris, Beasley, Barton, Craig, Millsap, Grant, Jokic, Plumlee, these guys are all going to play, and just it spells DFS worry for me. So Murray's the only guy on that side of the ball I'm looking at, and then sort of a surprise here to finish up the night on the Portland side. I don't like the big priced guys here. I sort of like Zach Collins. I just think that he does get in foul trouble. I know that and everything, but he is a good fantasy points per minute. I like this matchup with some of the Denver fours they'll be rotating in. And I think he could, really be one of those guys that could get, triple his value price tag for Portland.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to knock Zach. I mean, if I had any interest on the Portland side, I'd even go a little cheaper than Zach Collins, and I would stay at that forward position, maybe more of a small forward, and look at Kent Bazemore, if anything, just because we know he can. Yeah, I just think DraftKings 4K is just too cheap for him. He's a guy that can easily get 4 steals by halftime. He's a GPP play. It's not a cash game play, but we just know the kind of upside that Bazemore has shown in the past. He's a boom or bust kind of guy. It's either 17 fantasy points or 35. And if you get him on that 35-point night on a 4K salary, that's pretty good. So I think that's the one guy I might have a little bit of interest in, but I'm not going to go out of my way to kind of force him in. If he's the last guy I throw in my lineup because I need to save money, that's kind of how he's going to end up in it.
My only concern is, and I get what you're saying, is just that 3 spot with Hood, Bazemore, Hazonia. It seems a little crowded. I don't know. But
I think there's not a chance that Hazonia plays over Bazemore at the 3, in my opinion. I just don't see it happening. Yes, Hazonia is a very fun player to watch, and yes, he did great during preseason, but that's because they weren't playing their starters as much. And we saw that when Hazonia had bigger games, Bazemore barely played, and I think that's enough to be said right there that this is pretty much Bazemore's job at this point. Maybe he doesn't start necessarily, but he's pretty much locked into 23, 22 minutes at least, if you ask me. So. Not the best matchup, but
that's
4K.
my point, though, dude. Is can you afford to put a guy on a 22 game team slate that's going to play under 25 minutes? It's just, to me, that seems dangerous.
Have we mentioned a guy that's cheaper than him tonight, though? No, I don't think we have.
Yeah,
I think 4K is the cheapest that we could possibly look at. And if you need to that's why I said if he's the last guy I'm putting in there, and if it means I'm jamming in a few extra studs because I played him, I'm okay with it. If he played, I'm saying 22, 24, he can easily play 28. And it wouldn't surprise me. We really don't know what to look at when it comes to Bazemore and what his role is going to be on this team.
It could be a monster steal. There's no doubt about it, man. And you would be looking like a brilliant DFS shark that you are, my man.
I hope I am.
All right. We have made it through 11 games. We have 2 chicken soup challenges already. We're already frosty, yelling at each other about the Knicks and everybody else. This is beautiful, man. It's season. We got our blood flowing. Everybody's fired up. This is beautiful, man.
It's cool. I'm not gonna lie to you, Coach. I might have looked at a couple of the scores just now. Well, just not even the scores. I guess we could just say Dwight Howard versus JaVale McGee. So far, McGee's played 6 minutes. Howard's played 9. I don't know, man. I mean, McGee 2 points, 0 rebounds, 1 block. Dwight Howard's not doing too much better, but he's got 1 point, 1 rebound, 1 block. So they both suck right now.
I told you they were better to fade the 2 guys than anything else. That's probably the way to go.
Yeah.
But listen, make sure we're putting the show out in the evening so that you get it first thing in the morning. So the big important thing that I cannot emphasize enough is you can't just take the information from this show and plug everything in tomorrow, because things will change tomorrow as far as guys, that gets sat out, or, whatever the news that breaks, you got to stay up on it. So follow at Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter. Follow me at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. My man here at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria, and our man Andrew Hansen at Language Olympic. And make sure to, keep an eye on that stuff. We go to hoop-ball.com to our forums. We have a DFS thread now that we've got our guys, Miles and Andy, putting stuff up as the day's going on. Also, they'll post the show on there and sort of break down some of the things that Mike and I went over. And so stay up with all of that up until lock. That is the key. And we're both very active on there. We'll be throwing some stuff up throughout the day. So that is it, man. Do you have anything in closing?
I think we're good, Coach. I mean, just have fun, guys. It's basketball. It's here. we're here. Don't overthink things. It's kind of just go with your gut, go with your knowledge. You guys, if you've been listening to us, you probably heard us harp on a lot of these players for some time now. So. Just have fun doing this. At the end of the day, you're not using this necessarily to pay your bills. You play DFS because you love doing this, and making money in the end of the day is fun as well. So just have fun doing it, guys. Enjoy the games. We're gonna have a lot. It's gonna be fun.
Whip ass at it. Get better. Manage your bankroll, and then you can be like me someday and do this for a living, because it can be done, but you got to build to it. It's taken me years to get to this point, but stick with us on a daily basis. We're going to give you every ounce of knowledge that we have. We're going to give you every play that we have, every fade that we have, and we're going to try to really help you do well, because we want to see great results. And let us know some of those great results. That's the other thing. We don't have a normal type chat thing where we can just go in there and post all the time. Now, you certainly can do that on our forums at hoop-ball.com, but hit us up on Twitter as much as you can, both of us. We want to put a screenshot up there. Let us know, hey, we used some of your stuff that you shared and we popped this and hit that, because I know we're going to throw some monster winners on the board. I mean, tomorrow's Fantasy Draft has a $30,000 guaranteed pick and roll contest, and they've had a few of their There's been some overlay on some of those contests lately, so there's some great value there. So get on there, get that stuff done, man, and we're going to help you guys bring it home. So awesome. It's been a great show. Thank you for joining us on Hoopball NBA DFS today. For my man Mike Apotria, I'm Coach. We'll catch you again tomorrow when we look to crush it, NBA DFS.
Take care, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.